This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Este episodio es presentado por Honda. Descubra la nueva Honda Passport Trail Sport todoterreno. La Passport más todoterreno que Honda haya imaginado jamás. Esta Passport cuenta con mayor altura al suelo, barras de techo en todas sus versiones y neumáticas especialmente diseñados para cualquier terreno. Además, disfruta todos tus viajes con el control de clima de 3 zonas, techo panorámico y opciones como asientos delanteros con calefacción y ventilación. Conoce más en honda.com/Passport.
Welcome into San Francisco 49er Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we have a loaded show as we react to San Francisco 49ers GM John Lynch's NFL Combine press conference. A lot of news, a lot of updates, some free agent talk, some contract updates via Brock Purdy, some Deebo Samuel trade request updates, and little tiny signs the San Francisco 49ers may be trying to bring back a key defensive free agent this offseason. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's dive into and react to John Lynch's NFL Combine press conference. And let's start at the very top, because amongst all the other things happening in the NFL this year, when you talk about the San Francisco 49ers, the one thing that comes to mind, the one topic that everybody's waiting with bated breath to figure itself out, is Brock Purdy's eventual contract extension. Now, there really wasn't too much of an update here. However, we did get confirmation that John Lynch and the San Francisco 49ers have indeed begun contract extension talks with Brock Purdy, which shouldn't be much of a surprise. All the indications say they want to get a deal done relatively soon. Some even say it could be done as early as this week, albeit doesn't seem likely at this point. Others think, including myself, believe that they're trying to get this done before free agency, so roughly a 2-week period remaining until that deadline passes. I think a very soft deadline for a deal to get done is around the OTA period in around May, June, July. Don't want to let things get too deep into July because obviously it's training camp and the preseason's there. And then if that, things linger that long, you get yourself into a dangerous territory. Although John Lynch did give 2 relatively concrete remarks. The first one was one we kind of heard during his end of the season press conference to the media, and that was, we want Brock Purdy to be our quarterback as long as we are here. That is almost the exact same sentence, word for word, that Kyle Shanahan told the media in his end of the year press conference. His was more along the lines of, as long as I'm here, Brock is going to be here as well. So you can tell, again, it wasn't just Kyle Shanahan. Now it's John Lynch tying himself to Brock Purdy. They know their futures on the 49ers, sink or swim, with how Brock Purdy performs. It should also give you some comfort in the fact that they believe this much in him to tie themselves to him, although many of you may say, well, they felt the same way about Trey Lance, and that didn't go very well. I think both these quarterbacks are very different in their production levels and the success rate they both had. Although, the reason why I want to start with Brock Purdy is because I know there are some people out there that will hear the entire quote and they will look at one sentence and they will blow it up. They'll react to it negatively and say, see, they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. See, they're going to go after Matthew Stafford. See, Kirk Cousins may come to San Francisco. And the one line I'm referring to is here. When John Lynch says, there's no guarantees a deal will get done. Now, there's context behind that. He's referring to the timeline of wanting to get things done sooner than later. But I know some of you out there will say, well, that's indication as to the Niners not being sold on Brock Purdy, when it is the exact opposite. Everything they've said, besides that one sentence, which again needs context behind it, has been full bore. We believe in Brock Purdy. Diana Rossini said a couple days ago on the Scoop City podcast that they believe a deal around $57 million per year makes the most sense. That's around Jared Goff's contract and above Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and just behind Dak Prescott's record-breaking $60 million per year annual average. So a deal is going to get done. That's nothing really new. It was more of a confirmation of Brock Purdy's contract talks happening, which, a lot of people wonder, again, the timeline. That's the biggest thing. Timing is everything in life, and especially in football. Whether it's a trade request or it's a contract or it's an extension, timing means everything. And the Niners have had a really, really hard time narrowing and kind of nailing down that timing with their stars. Quarterbacks still have been different. When Jimmy Garoppolo, when they traded for him in 2017, they go 5-0. They nailed that contract down in January. That sucker was done. They wanted to avoid the free agency fiasco. This team, when they have these certain players you want to get locked down for a long time and say, hey, you're the most important player on our team, usually when it comes to quarterbacks, they are lock, stock, and barrel wanting to get that thing done sooner than later. Even the Trey Lance trade up happened at the combine, didn't happen before the draft or on draft day. They wanted to see all these quarterbacks, talk to all those quarterbacks, and obviously things didn't go their way. But when it comes to quarterbacks, they want to get things done quick. I'm expecting Brock Purdy's deal to get done in the next month or so. That's my assumption. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my assumption. They want to get this thing done. I would like to think they want to get it done prior to free agency to avoid having to worry about it post-draft, during the draft, and even during the summertime. But all indications show they're working on it. They're trying to get things narrowed down, and hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll get this thing done sooner than later. We also got a lot of health updates today, which is what I talked about a couple days ago in my prediction of storylines we'd hear about at the NFL Draft Combine in regards to Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, and Brandon Aiyuk. Quickly here, I want to hit on Trent Williams. A lot of people have believed that Trent was going to retire after this past year, and for a lot of reasons, there may be some credence to that. He had family issues off the field. His child passed away, which is terrible. Obviously, he had the injury to his ankle, which kind of hindered him the entire second half of the season. I believe shortly after the Seattle Seahawks game, in which they lost on the Geno Smith walk-off touchdown scramble. But you didn't see Trent for about 2 months to end the year. But we got confirmation towards the end of the season in John Lynch's end of season press conference. He said Trent's going to come back, and today was further confirmation of that notion that Trent Williams will indeed be back in 2025 for the San Francisco 49ers. And I quote here via John Lynch, Trent's playing and he's ready. He's motivated to have a strong season for the Niners in 2025. I think it's really important to be thankful that's the case. Trent, even though he's aging, still playing at a relatively high level. Obviously, last year, injuries got in the way and some off-the-field stuff maybe had taken him out of the game mentally. But when he played and was healthy, he looked like Trent Williams, albeit at 36 years old, entering his age 37 season. You never know how a player can regress. And when Father Time comes knocking, things can go crazy. The ankle is obviously an issue, has been for a while. I've called it a ticking time bomb. I think it's really important for San Francisco this year. Like in previous years, they got to find that backup left tackle. Many of you out there may say fix right tackle, give it one more year, then move that, whoever that right tackle could be, over to left tackle. That's certainly an option, depending on who's out there, whether it's Josh Simmons from the Ohio State Buckeyes, who has the patellar injury. Then there's Kelvin Banks from Texas, Will Campbell from LSU, albeit the latter may be a guard rather than tackle. Even guys from Missouri, Armin Membu, and then Marcus Mbao from Purdue. There are some options out there in this draft to maybe find the next left tackle of this team. However, I am of the mindset that San Francisco, as long as Trent Williams is there, is not going to pay any attention to the starting left tackle future of the team. They really didn't do it with Joe Staley, even though he was aging, and kind of gave them hints of, hey, after 2019, I might be done. That offseason, they go and trade for Trent Williams. This feels like a team that will let players leave, let them retire, then address the need once they're off the team. I think that same thing goes for Trent Williams. I think that it's important to either bring back Jalen Moore or find a backup tackle. Maybe there's a way where if McKivitz goes back to swing tackle, albeit his contract's relatively cheap, and depending on how the draft falls to you, maybe you can't do that. But it's really important to insulate the backup tackle room behind Trent Williams in case, and more likely than not, he will miss a couple of games the next year or so with an ankle injury. You got to insulate at quarterback, at left tackle, on the defensive line, on the offensive line. But getting Trent Williams some insurance will certainly help your team. Even go back to 2019 when it was McGlinchey and Joe Staley at left and right tackle. This team had Daniel Brunskill and Justin Skule. And for maybe as bad as their careers ended up, that year they played about 3 to 4 to 5 games together. And with backup tackles, San Francisco survived the middle of the year, which helped them propel to be the number 1 seed in 2019. McKivitz played for Williams in the season finale against the Rams at SoFi in 2021. Like, there's a lot of instances of this team having to rely on backup tackles to help them in pivotal games. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, San Francisco can, whether it's bring back Jalen Moore or find somebody else, they got to find some depth behind Trent Williams this year. And awesome he's back. Happy he's back. How could you not be? But again, Father Time may come a knocking, and injuries have been piling up in recent years. But if he's healthy, really kind of had the second half of the season off, has the entire offseason off again, we could get a one final, maybe if you're lucky 2 years, but one final phenomenal Hall of Fame year from Trent Williams. But again, backup left tackle may be a key need for this team in the offseason. Moving along to Christian McCaffrey's health. One of the more upsetting storylines of last season was Christian McCaffrey's health. Man. It's last year was tough because coming off the Offensive Player of the Year award, you lose a Super Bowl, then week 1, bam, CMC isn't healthy, and you're like, oh, okay. Didn't really come out of nowhere. The team kept it quiet, but the severity of it grew, and it kind of became this myth behind the scenes of like, how actually injured is Christian McCaffrey? Goes on IR, comes back, comes back against the Buccaneers post-bye week, and then gets hurt again 2 games later. Not exactly what you want from a 28-year-old running back who has touched the football the second most times in the league since 2022. He's older, he's aging. The injuries are, to a certain degree, piling up, and the touches are obviously a massive thing for him. You want to get him some protection. You want to make sure he's healthy the entirety of the year. This offense, more so with Christian McCaffrey than, say, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk, is a different offense, a worse offense when he isn't out there. And I think getting the update we got today from John Lynch was great. We heard during the Super Bowl that from Christian McCaffrey's father, Ed McCaffrey, that CMC is going to be healthy, should be 100% soon. And according to John Lynch today, Christian McCaffrey is, and I quote, doing great, doing well, and even better news. John Lynch believes Christian McCaffrey will, at least in some parts, take some off-season program reps. It's great news. Whether it's OTAs or training camp, you always want to see that for Christian McCaffrey. Take things slow. He added here at the end, we're listening to the medical experts. CMC had to go to Russia to get his Achilles and bilateral Achilles tendonitis fixed last year. You better listen to the doctors, John, please. For the sake of your franchise, your financial pocketbook, and the records of your team, listen to the doctors, whether it's bringing back Jordan Mason or drafting a running back in this loaded running back draft class. I really want to see a 3-headed monster. Use Christian McCaffrey as this slot receiver if you have to. There's so many ways to utilize a versatile receiver and running back like himself. You don't have to have him between those tackles every single year. or every single game. There's ways to keep CMC upright. He takes care of his body incredibly well. That said, like Trent Williams, running backs and Father Time usually don't shake hands and have a good relationship. So good he's healthy, but there are definitely a lot of reasons to believe that CMC's best years are behind him, hoping he bucks that trend by having a healthy 2025 season. John even said when he was asked, if Christian McCaffrey's healthy, he's going to be one of the best players out there for us. But again, a big if for CMC, and it's good to hear he's doing well. And hopefully they can protect him throughout the training camp process, because he's one of those guys who wants to be out there every single day, whether it's an off day, whether it's, a light practice or a hard practice. He wants to be out there every single day. I think it goes a long way to protecting CMC from himself, to get him off the field a lot, limit his touches, make him more of a, I guess you could say, a dangerous weapon by utilizing him sparingly. Not 25 touches per game. Give him 13 to 15 carries. Give him 6 receptions. Get him in open space. You don't have to utilize CMC as that bell cow. Utilize him as you utilize Deebo Samuel in the last couple years, right? A lot of people, including you out there listening, say Christian McCaffrey made Deebo Samuel redundant. Well, now is the time to prove that. And I think we could see a different role for Christian McCaffrey in 2025. Want to go ahead and go to the YouTube comment section for a hot second here. What's up, Bobo? What's up, Papa J? I see you in here. Bobo says the NFL is definitely a year-round sport. 1,000% is. It is February 26th at the very moment. The Super Bowl was 17 days ago, and here we are on a Wednesday afternoon talking about the NFL scouting combine, in which no prospects worked out just yet. The NFL owns American sports. Papa J says here, Sterling, when talking about Purdy, John even said the words, as long as we are here and beyond. Exactly. Really is they fully believe that Brock Purdy is the future of the organization, and they believe as long as they're going to be in San Francisco, Brock Purdy is the answer to the question of who is your starting quarterback. It's a good thing to know, but certainly when you use hard words like that, you use bold phrases like that, it undoubtedly links you to that quarterback forever. And I hope things work out, and I think they will, albeit you got to win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy to make the deal a win, in my opinion. Papa J also asks here, if we get a good center, would you consider switching Pooney to right tackle? I wouldn't. I think this class, albeit is loaded, at some of the positions, offensive line, it really isn't one of them. And let's say, for example, this team signs Drew Dahlman as their center, although I don't think it'll happen this offseason, but crazier things have happened. Let's say it does happen. Pooney's your right guard, McKivitz goes to right tackle, or you draft, say, Marcus Mbao from Purdue. He plays right tackle for you. Pooney plays right guard. Dahlman plays center, and left guard becomes a competition between Ben Barch and Spencer Burford. I think you're okay with that. I have a hard time believing that Pooney ever plays tackle in his career, albeit maybe there's a future once McKivitz is gone, but I don't think San Francisco wants to give up having a star right guard for a star right tackle. You'd rather have the interior guy in this offense, knowing you want to get him out in space, you want to pull him outside. I think Pooney will be this team's right guard for a long time. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that's the case. Papa J also says, like and subscribe. Yes, like and subscribe to the show. What are you waiting for? I want to hit 2,000 subs by the beginning of the 2025 NFL season. We're not very close. We have about 1,200 currently. Let's get those numbers up. We're here to pump you up, as Dana Carvey used to say on SNL. Keys says here, can Pooney play center? If so, draft and sign an offensive lineman. I don't think we're paying top price for Dahlman. I agree with the not paying top price for Dahlman. Pooney, I'm sure, could play center, albeit, I don't think they want to do that. In my opinion, there's a lot of good underrated right tackles and right guards in this draft class that could get slotted over to left guard if they need them to. Again, I am of the belief that Jake Brendel's probably going to be your starting center next year. If not, it might be Matt Hennessy, who was signed late last season to a 2-year contract. Don't forget about that guy. So there is some, I get it. Niner fans have been screaming for a offensive line improvement since 2019. And there's been some along the way, albeit at this point in time, there seems to be a transition point to say, look, we can no longer go cheap in the trenches. Maybe that results in an improved offensive line, whether it's via money spent during free agency or the NFL draft. My money is on this team buying very low on the offensive line during free agency, but likely drafting a 3rd round and a 6th round offensive lineman, which again, there's plenty of quality starters out there in this draft throughout the entirety of it. Albeit, maybe you have no idea who they are. I know last year, a lot of people didn't know Dominic Pooney was. But when you dove into his tape and dove into his stats, it was like, oh my God, how did you not know who this guy was? And he became one of the best offensive linemen this past year as a rookie. What other questions do we have here in the YouTube chat? We have some Jake Moody stuff. We'll get to him in a second. Stick around, and we'll get to him very soon. But I want to let you know that if you want to watch your San Francisco 49ers this upcoming season, 2025, you want to watch the Golden State Warriors 6-1 with Jimmy Butler, or you're saying, look, spring training just began. I want to go see my favorite baseball team. Go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ErsAccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Moving along here on the reaction to John Lynch's combine press conference reaction, we have to talk about Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel has been...
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024, ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
One of the more polarizing figures on the San Francisco 49ers really since 2021. Had an incredible year then, obviously an all-pro, gets paid a massive contract throughout the offseason trying to get there. A lot of bumps along the way, an official trade request. He had a weird YouTube documentary of his time trying to get paid. Then after getting paid, had a really bad 2022. Bounced back somewhat in 2023, and then 2024 was also really bad. Again, the worst year of his entire career. Now he wants out. We are living in the aftermath of that official trade request that happened shortly after the season was over during exit interviews. And for the first time since then, John Lynch has addressed Deebo Samuel's trade request. When he was asked about it, he said, Deebo Samuel asked for a fresh start. We are going to honor that. When further pressed, he said everything is good, but at some point time happens. It probably makes sense, so we're at least allowing him to look at trades. What else can you say? He asked for a trade. We were probably going to cut him anyways. So sure, see if you can get us some draft pick compensation in return. Albeit, John Lynch, for as much as I love the guy, for a Catholic like himself, sometimes he's a liar. Because he said there was also significant interest in trading for Deebo Samuel from other teams. Now, I want to clarify what I'm about to say. Yes, there are plenty of teams that see a player like Deebo Samuel on the market and say, what can he do for my offense? Imagine him in Denver, in Carolina, in Baltimore, on Washington. A lot of teams like the idea of acquiring a player like Deebo Samuel. However, this idea that teams are showing significant interest in trading for Deebo Samuel seems like one of the most far-fetched ideas out there. Because what team wants to pay Deebo Samuel on the contract he's currently owed? Very little of them want to pay Deebo that contract. Very little of them want to give up top-end draft pick compensation, which, funny enough, leads me to the next thing John Lynch had to say about Deebo Samuel's future with the team. So, okay, they acknowledged he asked for a trade. They're going to honor that trade request. However, when he was asked about potentially Deebo Samuel returning to San Francisco in 2025, guess what John Lynch had to say? Very short quote. He said, "There's always a scenario." And when I heard that, I said, wow. Yes, it is coach speak. Yes, it is simply just, look, I have to protect myself. I don't want to close that door in case something crazy happens, which led me to connect the dots of a previous example of this happening with the San Francisco 49ers and one of their premier, or at the time, star players, that being Jimmy Garoppolo in 2022. A couple of years ago, don't forget, San Francisco 49ers draft Trey Lance. He sits behind Jimmy for a year. The next year in 2022, they say, great, Jimmy's going to be gone. He has a shoulder injury. We're going to trade him. It's Trey Lance's team. They go out there and they draft Brock Purdy. They bring in Nate Sudfeld. Okay, all the signs are pointing to Jimmy Garoppolo being gone. I was at the facility. I was working the day they reworked Jimmy Garoppolo's contract to bring him back. I was there when Jimmy Garoppolo was out there on the side field throwing to water boys and just random strangers, and you're like, this is uncomfortable. This is awkward. He's in meetings, but he's not really part of the team. And I think a lot of that, while not exactly translatable and comparable to what Deebo's going through, but San Francisco had every intention of trading away Jimmy Garoppolo during the 2022 offseason. The same way San Francisco has every intention of trading away Deebo Samuel this offseason in the next month or so before his bonus hits the books on March 22nd. Now, I thought John Lynch is keeping the door open somewhat just in case. Very similar to what happened with Jimmy Garoppolo. With Jimmy G at the time, San Francisco played this thing fickle, had a hard asking price of a first or second round draft pick. Nobody offered that. It led to Jimmy Garoppolo coming back and riding the bench for a couple of games before Trey Lance got injured. So I ask you and myself the question. Let's say San Francisco doesn't get the trade offers they want for Deebo Samuel. Let's say that the only offers they get are 7th round draft picks and 6th round draft picks, and they're like, nope, we are firm that the asking price is at least a 3rd round draft pick. And Jed York says $15 million, the roster bonus means nothing to me. Is there a way San Francisco plays the extreme version of hardball and says, hey, Deebo Samuel, go on the side field, deal with that? I'm not saying I would do that. I would say, get the hell off my team. I don't want you as a distraction. Deebo Samuel feels like one of those players that would cause a distraction, unlike Jimmy Garoppolo. Deebo Samuel feels like one of those players that Jimmy could be out there on the side field. Deebo Samuel would be out on the side field dancing with the boombox. Like, it'd be uncomfortable, even more uncomfortable than the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. But San Francisco doesn't mind uncomfortable. And I wonder if they view a draft pick compensation or Deebo Samuel being on the team more than that $15 million off the books. Again, I wouldn't do that. I'd cut him right now if I could. Move on or trade him for whatever. You want to get a low budget, who cares player? Do it. I do wonder, though, just using Lynch's words to, make a bigger conversation here. I do wonder if we can maybe compare the Jimmy Garoppolo wannabe trade in 2022, the uncomfortable, situation that was on the side field, to what Deebo Samuel's going through now. He can want out. The team never has to abide by that, never has to, make a deal get done. They can get really crappy offers and say, you know what, whatever. We'll just keep him for one more year and see what he can do. There's a real conversation to be had that while the team may be done with Deebo Samuel, and I think they're going to release him eventually, but as things progress, say the offseason doesn't go their way for the first 10 days of free agency, you never know what can happen in the NFL. And it wouldn't be shocked if Kyle Shanahan's like, oh, Deebo Samuel, you're my boy. I want to make sure he's back next year, albeit I don't see it happening. But I do think maybe on the off chance there could be something there with comparing Jimmy Garoppolo's 2022 situation to Deebo Samuel where he's at now. We have a question here from Papa J saying, what's the minimum you would take for Deebo Samuel if you are the 49ers? Okay, so the asking price, I'm sure, is a second-round pick or a fourth-round pick. I'm sure they want that for him. If it was me, anything. I don't care what it is. You can give me Simba Webster, the former punt and kick returner for this team at Antioch High School or from Deer Valley High School. Like, give me anything. You want to give me Danny Gray back? I'll take whatever you can offer me for Deebo Samuel, knowing he doesn't want to be here. Now, to the Niners' credit, to John Lynch's credit, he did say, look, the feelings aren't like, there's no resentment. There's no, there's no bad feelings. We like Deebo. There's a lot of admiration there for both. There's respect between us and Deebo Samuel. However, if he wants out that bad and you're okay, like you want out, I will take whatever I can take to get you, right? Like you have, like, the Niners have no leverage in regards to trade negotiations. Teams can say, look, you have to cut him. There's money involved. Once that bonus hits, you guys are screwed. Like, that's why that March 22nd date is so important. Because once that bonus hits, it's almost like Deebo Samuel is stuck in San Francisco. All the teams say, nope, we ain't taking him. He's yours. Sorry, kind of thing. So I would take anything any team has to offer me. I don't care. I don't care if it was the Seattle Seahawks or the Rams or the Cardinals. If it took a 7th-round pick from an interdivision team, I will get rid of Deebo Samuel tomorrow. Get anything you can in return, because Deebo doesn't want to be here. And if you don't want to be here and you don't believe in him as a player anymore, get whatever you can while you can. Keys says here in the YouTube comment section that besides Kittle, Warner, and Williams, all our other big name signings haven't performed up to standards. I'd push back a little bit on Nick Bosa. I think Bosa has been overwhelmingly really good, albeit there have been some big games he hasn't performed his best at. And, he signed before 2023 season. So the first half of that year kind of jaded some people from him. Then last year had an injury, but even last year was still really good. You go back to that Seattle Seahawks game the first time, he caused 2 turnovers in that game. And I think he really was hindered by how bad the defensive line was this past year. And if they can get that figured out, you'll see Nick Bosa look like the defensive player of the year once again in 2025. A lot of people, oddly enough, do not like Nick Bosa. I get there's political reasons as to why, but I don't care about that stuff. It doesn't bother me at all. Whatever. But Nick Bosa is a football player. He's a darn good football player. He's out there, getting you 8.5+ sacks a year. I think so far since 2019, I think he's 8th in the NFL in sacks. Like, he's been one of the best defensive players ever since he played in the NFL in 2019. So, but I agree with you. Jimmy G didn't perform very well, albeit they went to a Super Bowl. Maybe you can put Jimmy Ward in that conversation. Not even argue Charvarius Ward had 2 really good years in San Francisco. And I think you'll put Lenore's name up there relatively soon, starting next season. Moving along here on the notes I want to talk about Brian Griese. Very small update here. We kind of speculated yesterday that the reason why he was leaving wasn't because of Brock Purdy, wasn't because of what the team decided, which ended up being true. That's a notch on my book. I'll say that. He had family reasons as to why he stepped away, which makes sense. According to John Lynch, Griese turned down the Jets head coaching interview, although the team said, take it, like go get a head coaching job. He said, nope, I don't want to coach anymore. And then there were some personal reasons as to why he stepped away, which led to him being replaced by Mick Lombardi yesterday. Apparently his contract was also up, and he was very transparent in with the team when stating, I'm probably not going to be here very long, which Brian Griese's lasting note of or for this team is simply just, I got you, Brock Purdy. According to Eric Branch last night of the SF Chronicle, Brian Griese, of all the quarterbacks taken in 2022, Brock Purdy was his highest graded quarterback. I don't know what the process looks like, but if there's a scouting job open down the line, I'd bring back Brian Griese in a heartbeat. He knows quarterbacks. Obviously, Brock isn't the greatest quarterback in the league, but he's certainly a darn good one. And they're going to give him $55+ million this offseason. So a darn good job for Brian Griese. Cheers to you, brother. Hope you have success in whatever you do. And maybe down the road, we see you back with the San Francisco 49ers, but no real reason as to why he stepped away in regards to Brock Purdy or the team. Just personal reasons, and cheers to him for stepping aside when he did. That brings us to arguably the most controversial update we got today from John Lynch. That is of Jake Moody's status for 2025. And many of you out there are like, I don't like Jake Moody. Jake Moody stinks. And I'd probably be in that grouping as well. And I'll read you exactly what John Lynch said today when it comes to Jake Moody's future with the 49ers. Apparently, the team has a lot of belief. That's a quote there. A lot of belief in Jake Moody, and feel the injuries were a reason as to why he struggled so much in the second half of last season. They also talked about, the team, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, having an open and honest conversation with Jake Moody. I think, John Lynch gave a really good anecdote in regards to, what led to them bringing back Jake and maybe not giving up on Jake Moody just yet. And I can attest to this, that a lot of times kickers, it's a awkward situation, right? It's really a crapshoot. You can draft a guy in the first round and they'll be terrible. You'll find a guy in the UFL playing FIFA soccer and they'll be incredible for you for a decade. Like, finding a kicker is super hard. There's never a concrete way to find a good one. It's just kind of luck of the draw. But John Lynch talked about today a former kicker with the Broncos, which I have no idea who it was. Could have been Jason Elam, could have been Matt Prater for all I know. Could have been anybody. Texted him and said, Jake's in his head, but he's got a great swing. He's got a great leg. If you can get him out of his own head, there's a bright future ahead for him. Now, maybe that Broncos kicker is, just out of his mind and he's crazy, but I think everything John Lynch said today, one, had to be said, had to reaffirm their confidence in Jake Moody, albeit many fans may hate that because Kyle Shanahan really didn't do that down the stretch for a variety of good reasons. Jake Moody sucked last year, to be blunt. Really hasn't been worth that third round pick they took in 2022 with him. But I think everything's leading up to them signing or drafting a kicker, having Jake in camp as well. And ultimately, I would not be shocked to see Jake Moody still be this team's kicker in 2025. I think it's really important for organizations, kind of like quarterbacks, albeit kickers are only one guy. Like, we don't give kickers time to grow. I think we often forget that kickers are similar to every other player. Sometimes, although their job seems so simple, and again, there's an upright, get the ball in there, it shouldn't be that hard, we often don't give kickers time to progress, to grow, to learn, to get better. It is literally boom or bust every single Sunday and game day. So, with young quarterbacks, you can sit behind the veteran for a year. You can learn behind the savvy, 10-year veteran quarterback, Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, Trey Lance, Jimmy G, every other quarterback under the sun that goes in the first round usually sits for a year or two before they get some playing time. For kickers, it's like, if you're not performing day one, you are worth absolutely nothing to us. And a lot of that makes sense. Positional value is so different in the NFL. You'll give quarterbacks, younger ones, mind you, time to grow. Kickers, not so much. You see the Niners kickers the past couple of years. Gold's retired by now, but Joey Sly's pretty good. Chase McLaughlin has turned into a pretty good kicker, right, with the Colts. I think now with the Buccaneers, I think that's right. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but still, turned into a pretty good kicker in the NFL. I think it's okay to be upset with Jake Moody, okay to be frustrated with Jake Moody. He's led to lost games in San Francisco to a point of, it's like, had they had a, run-of-the-mill kicker, a veteran for 6+ years that knows what he's doing, they probably win those games. But I think being patient with him could pay off in the long run, but they're going to protect themselves. They're going to give themselves an option to get off of them this offseason during the training camp process. Hopefully a competition. I know his rookie season, there was Zane Gonzalez there. That was to protect themselves. But Jake Moody is back in 2025, at least for the offseason program. Probably going to be a competition. Yeah, many of you out there hate him. I get it. But I think there's still potential in Jake Moody, albeit this is a make or break offseason for him. If he struggles in training camp and preseason, get him out of here immediately. But
we off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox disinfecting all-purpose cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back. Use as directed.
A few months to go. If he's healthy, we did see a rather big discrepancy in his health when he was healthy and when he was injured last year, albeit neither was great. Very big difference in regards to what he did in the first half, pre-injury, and post-injury. Very different players, but we'll see what happens during the offseason program. We also got a rather interesting comment by John Lynch today regarding Javon Hargrave. So if you go back to the team's exit interviews and their last media availabilities to end the year, John Lynch talked about they're going to cut Javon Hargrave with the post-June 1st cut. They redid his contract during the year to save more money once they cut him post-June 1st. But in that press conference to end the year, he talked about they have interest in bringing back Hargrave, barring the market value he gets as a free agent. They do want to give him the opportunity to go out there and sign elsewhere, but they're holding out hope they can re-sign him this season. That same thing was said today. So despite free agency happening in 2 weeks' time, the San Francisco 49ers are still holding out hope they can re-sign Javon Hargrave. I think if they can, on a 1-year prove-it deal, get cheap, rehash your market, rebuild it back up, and next year leave, makes a lot of sense. You talk about getting Hargrave for cheap on a 1-year deal. You got Collins. You got Jordan Elliott, who wasn't great last year, albeit shouldn't have been starting. You have Evan Anderson. If you draft a top-tier defensive tackle, maybe 2 of them this year, or sign one in free agency, Hargrave becomes kind of a luxury. I know he isn't a great run defender, but he's still a really good pass rusher. I think it would give them more flexibility, although I don't think he re-signs. I really would not be shocked to see Hargrave come back to San Francisco with Robert Saleh, have his real first defensive front-minded defensive coordinator in San Francisco and say, look, I've seen what you've done with Buckner and Armstead. I want to get paid too. We'll see how the market works out for him, but the team is still holding out hope to re-sign Javon Hargrave this year, which I really wouldn't mind them doing. And I think maybe a good signing for them if the value is worth it financially. Moving along here to some prospects San Francisco has met with so far at the Combine. I'm sure there's more than this, but we have four top-tier defensive line prospects the San Francisco 49ers have talked to formally at the NFL Combine. Now, personally, I don't really care about Combine meetings. They mean nothing to me because you get 45 of them. And a lot of the time it's weeding out certain players, asking, talking to players face to face who have maybe some character concerns, a la Mike Green, who had sexual assault charges against him in high school and college, albeit there may be some more nuances to that than we actually know about, according to Green himself. But I care more about top 30 interviews, top 30 visits. This is very different. This is simply just, let's sit in a room, let's talk tape for 20 minutes and move on, right? But it does give you an idea as to where San Francisco's mindset may be before they get into narrowing down their draft board into draftable players and undraftable players come April's draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin. This year, at the Combine thus far, the San Francisco 49ers have talked to Indiana defensive tackle CJ West. They've talked to Tennessee edge rusher James Pierce. That's a first-round talent, many people's number 2 edge rusher in this class. And if San Francisco is like myself and have taken Mike Green off their board, James Pierce could be that pick at number 11. If they bring back Javon Hargrave and sign somebody else in free agency, James Pierce could very easily be that pick at number 11 and give Nick Bosa, that freak athlete, opposite him in the edge rushing room. They also talked to Nick Scorton, Texas A&M edge rusher, more of a second-round pick, third-round pick in my eyes. We'll see how that goes for him, but not as freaky of an athlete, not as bendy as Pierce would be, but you can see where their eyes are trending to the edge rushing group. But we got the big swing today. This is what I want to get into for a hot second here. According to Matt Maiocco, Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan revealed he had a formal interview with the San Francisco 49ers. And when I say you should be up in your church pews clapping, singing hallelujah, the San Francisco 49ers may have their eyes on defensive tackle and stud Walter Nolan to maybe be this team's next interior defensive tackle that has a good run defense, an excellent pass rush, a little smaller, underweight, but can also play the inside and outside and give Saleh the versatility he likes from his DTs. I was jumping for joy. I was like, if Mike Green's off the board, it is Walter Nolan or bust for me. If he's on the board when San Francisco picks, very different prospect from Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, the Michigan guys at DT, but I really like Walter Nolan. He said himself he's a Niner fan. He grew up watching Patrick Willis, who went to Ole Miss as well. So there is some connections there in regards to a young defensive player at Ole Miss who, like San Francisco, comes here. I mean, Willis is a Hall of Famer now, so there is some connections there. I like seeing they talk to him. I'm sure you'll see his name in mock drafts continually going to San Francisco this offseason. I'm sure you'll see a couple of mine in April putting him on there as well. So I love what I see from him. I think he's a good prospect. People talk about his production. I don't understand the knock on his production. I'm going to read it to you in regards to what Walter Nolan did in 2024 at Ole Miss. And I'm going to tell you, while he may only be 6'3", 305 pounds, relatively tiny for an interior defensive lineman, as a junior, he has 33 and 5/8 inch arms, hit a 91.6 run defense grade, a 75 pass rushing grade, had 41 total pressures, 6.5 sacks, a 12.2% pass rush win rate, and 26 run stops. Now, the technique isn't always there, that's for sure, but he's a good tackler, high effort, and I really think There's a really good chance he could be San Francisco's pick at number 11 in this year's NFL draft. But look, I'll tell you this right now. Walter Nolan, he ain't no GOAT like Jerry Rice. And if you want to perform like the GOAT, Jerry Rice, then you got to get yourself a can of GOAT fuel, whether you're an athlete, a podcaster, whatever else you may do that makes you a normal person. You got to get yourself a can of GOAT fuel to bring the best out of every single one of us. And to those coffee drinkers out there, coffee's great and all, but if you go to Starbucks every single day, that's a lot of sugar. It's a lot of fat. Goat Fuel is a healthy coffee alternative. So click that link down below in the description and grab yourself a can of Goat Fuel to feel like the greatest of all time. I myself, working in my studio, being a podcaster, being a sports writer for theheavy.com, covering John Lynch's press conference, I have myself a Goat Fuel, a protein cheese puff bag, and some spicy chicken nuggets. And I was out there tuning out articles every single day thanks to Goat Fuel. So grab a can down below and save yourself using my link in the description. And let's move on to our two final updates on the day. But quickly, I want to say what's up to Dre Area Sports. He says, smash that like button and subscribe to 49ers Access. Yes, please and thank you. And what's up, Dre Area Sports? Papa J does ask here quickly, how much of the decision to keep Jake Moody more chances on is because they spent a third-round pick on him? I've never heard any team pulling for a horrible kicker. There is validity to your question in regards to San Francisco being a little stubborn in admitting they're wrong. Surprisingly, I think we all kind of were shocked they moved off of Trey Lance so quickly. It was like, oh, like they're admitting they made a massive mistake. That was a shocker. They admitted that Danny Gray was a mistake relatively quickly. He played like one snap his rookie season. Trey Lance got hurt, who was a healthy and active, and they just cut him during last year. Like there are very few instances of them admitting the mistakes. They kept Solomon Thomas for a really long time. McGlinchey was okay for his time in San Francisco, albeit they didn't view him as a long-term answer for a lot of good reasons. They also kept a lot of players over the years that had no business being here and were pushed down the depth chart by younger and more exciting players. Jake Moody, albeit plays kicker, so maybe there is some discrepancy there. But I do think you are right, Papa J, that there is a lot of validity to the fact that San Francisco may say, third-round pick kicker would look really bad after 2 years if he's gone, because that was a luxury pick. You reached for a player you probably didn't have to reach for. So they are being stubborn, but I do think the door is open to moving off of him if he struggles this offseason. I would not be shocked to see San Francisco pay for a free agent kicker or draft somebody else or sign a UDFA because they got to find somebody else. If Jake struggles and is costing you games, he's got to go. But I do think you're right, Papa J, that there is certainly some stubbornness on the Niners' behalf to say, crap, we made a massive mistake drafting Jake Moody at pick 102 in 2023's draft. Like, you got Jair Brown. That was a great pick, or at least a good pick so far. Jake Moody, though, just yikes. Moving along to one of the other decisions, according to reports, that San Francisco regrets, that is signing Brandon Aiyuk to a $30 million per year contract. Aiyuk gets a lot of hate for how he handled things last year. A lot of reports saying that the way he went about things last year in the offseason rubbed a lot of people in the room the wrong way, which I understand. But this year, a lot of the talk around him is his health. Is he healthy? When will he come back to the team? What's his timetable on his return? And according to John Lynch, he had made no declarations, gave no timetable on when Brandon Aiyuk will return from his knee injury that he suffered in October last year. I think a lot of the reasons as to why San Francisco regrets signing him is because, yes, his antics during the negotiations and how, fickle he was, and admittedly himself making things harder than they should have been, he also got hurt. And he tore his ACL, tore his MCL, and other ligaments in his knee. Like, there's a real chance Brandon Aiyuk is never the same player. But they're not trading him. However, according to John Lynch, he says Brandon Aiyuk is doing well, and he has a benchmark check coming up soon with doctors that'll give the team a better idea as to how far along Aiyuk is in his recovery. He also added the fact that Aiyuk is kind of an insane athlete. Those guys usually heal faster than others. So he's believing that Aiyuk will heal at a faster rate than maybe others would that aren't as of a high athlete as himself. So somewhat of a good news there from Brandon Aiyuk, albeit maybe more of a concern, which might make me believe this team is probably going to draft a receiver again. I really would not be surprised if third round comes around and receiver becomes the new third round running back this year. Maybe a Pat Bryant from Illinois, maybe a Brew McCoy from, I think it's Tennessee. There's a lot of good receivers. Maybe they go Jalen Royals from Utah State. There are a lot of options out there that could make some sense, and I think San Francisco has to find somebody, whether it's a free agent, to at least hold them over. But I also believe that there really may be some concerns. Aiyuk is never the same. So the receiver has become not a primary need, but kind of a supplemental need for them, where you're not going to go first and second round, but late day 2 draft pick could make some sense as a receiver. John Lynch also did address trade rumors, though, that were sparked by Diana Rossini when she said that some teams are poking around to see if San Francisco would trade Brandon Aiyuk. And he says basically, yep, that happens at this time every single year. Whether it is Aiyuk or other players, there's always teams asking questions as to will you or will you not trade a certain player. But he didn't go any further into that. However, he did shift that conversation to a very different topic. When asked about Brandon Aiyuk's potential trade, this, that, and the other, Lynch was like, yep, moved on to talking about the team needing to get younger. And I think right there is a very big indicator. They want to use all their picks, 8, 9, 10 of them, whatever they finish with, they view this year. And he said it himself. They want to replicate what they did last year. They found Pearsall, Garendo, Mustafa, Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney, 5 guys you believe can be either starters or key contributors for you in the future. And you want to have instant starters, you want to have instant impact players. John Lynch essentially told you what they're doing this offseason. They want to get younger. They want instant impact players to help bring forth this new generation of Niner stars. He didn't even want to get into Aiyuk trades. He was like, look, we have to get younger, more durable, and faster, exciting. And this year's draft class needs to mirror what last year's draft class did for us in getting instant impact players. So I think right there, in all the kerfuffle, if you will, of these answers he gives, all the smoke and fire and whatever you're going to see this offseason, John Lynch told you right there.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
They view this draft class as one of the most important of their regimes. They realize they got to get younger, they got to get faster, they got to get stronger, and they have to find instant impact players to help them this year. I would not be surprised if you see this team go a very similar route as how they did last year, getting 5, 6-year collegiate players, guys they know are more proven, that yes, have high upside still, but no, on day one, are likely going to be starting caliber for them in 2025. Moving along to the final update of the day, and that comes from Dre Greenlaw. Yes, we have a Dre Greenlaw update. I know a lot is made of, will he come back? Will he not come back? A lot of conflicting reports as to what the team views him as to what Dre Greenlaw wants, whether he wants to be the guy, wear the green dot on a different defense. Barrows and Mayoko and Kawakami, and they all kind of go back and forth stating different things. And one of those guys will be right. Maybe they're all going to be wrong. But according to John Lynch, for those out there that are saying, you got to bring back Dre Greenlaw, John Lynch has stated today the San Francisco 49ers have had talks with Dre Greenlaw on re-signing him this season. The hope is that they can get a deal done before free agency, although Lynch adds Greenlaw may test the open market first. I think the Niners need to, if they want to get a deal done with Dre Greenlaw, get a deal done before free agency. There is some credence to the idea that letting him test the market and getting a more accurate value of what his worth may be may help San Francisco in the long run. Maybe he overvalues himself, and teams may say, we're going to give you $6 million. San Francisco says, we'll give you $6 million in incentives, which I think could help San Francisco. But San Francisco just got that $7 million increase because the cap went up about $7 million. I really could see San Francisco utilizing that money, getting a deal with Greenlaw done relatively soon, or at least trying to push for one in the next 2 weeks or so. So there could be some updates. Ben Barch already signed. We could very easily see Dre Greenlaw re-sign, and I think him coming back would kind of set San Francisco up for a very busy and active offseason. They got 10 draft picks. They got to re-sign Brock Purdy, but getting Greenlaw taken care of could go a very long way into fortifying the defense once again, barring his health. It can also give them more time to finding, like the receiver room, like the backup left tackle room, insulation behind him in case he goes down. Of course, you like D. Winters, you like Bethune, you like Jalen Graham. Only one of those guys really makes you say, oh, what could that guy be, that being D. Winters? I think if you get Greenlaw done, it likely means they're going to draft a linebacker late in the draft this year and help themselves out along the way. The exact quote was, hopefully we come to an agreement, according to John Lynch. We've been having, so we'll see if we can get some progress on it. They're working. They want to get these things done. It feels like San Francisco is trying to build their depth up, get those 1-year deals out of the way first before free agency hits. And then once free agency hits, can maybe go big fish shopping, barring what the market dictates. But I think if you lose Deebo Samuel, you got to bring back Dre Greenlaw. You just don't want to lose the energy. Even if Dre isn't healthy, he brings something to your defense in the room. Even if he can only play on certain downs, he brings something else. He brings energy. We talk about boombox guys, albeit he isn't one of those dudes. He's one of those players that just say, hey, emotionally, lead me on defense, and Greenlaw does that for this team. So there is more of a need, in my opinion, to bring back Dre Greenlaw than Deebo Samuel. Like Greenlaw, albeit has the injury, I think there's more upside to re-signing Greenlaw than trying to work things out in a way with Deebo Samuel this offseason. We have some questions here. First off, Rick Diaz says this: good evening, my friend, coming from Chicago. It's 5:34 in the evening in Chi-Town. Would you believe this? Where I live, and I'm a Niner fan, so far away from you guys. How are you, my friend? Rick, I'm doing phenomenal. It's relatively good weather out here in Hesperia, California. It's starting to get a little warmer. I'm out there sunbathing, working from home, feeling good. Hopefully the weather's out there is good in Chicago as well. A great 1765 says Savion Williams from TCU being the third-round receiver San Francisco may take. He is wildly heralded as the next Deebo Samuel in this draft class. I talked about him earlier during a previous show. If Kyle wants to have that gadget guy, Savion Williams could be that. Squats 600 plus pounds, benches around 350. It's incredible what Williams can do, albeit very much like Deebo, not a separator and kind of a running back. But again, Deebo was great in San Francisco for about 2 to 3 seasons, so maybe Kyle Shanahan sees him the exact same way. Papa J asks here, do you think that maybe we are underlooking the receiver position considering that Juwan Jennings may be our only elite receiver? First off, I don't think Juwan Jennings, for as good as he is elite. I think he's really good, but doesn't separate. He's more of a big slot receiver, contested catch guy, a very valuable player, mind you. Don't get me wrong. I think we're also underselling the impact Pearsall could have in year 2. Yes, there are serious concerns about Aiyuk's health to a point of San Francisco regretting signing Brandon Aiyuk. However, I don't think receiver is a massive pressing need. Again, you get Christian McCaffrey back. You have Kittle. You have JJ. You have Pearsall. They're probably going to sign a veteran guy out there. At least they should. Maybe they bring in Keenan Allen for all I know, or they sign Darius Slayton. I think there are some cheaper solutions out there that can make some sense for them. But I don't think we are underlooking the position. I think it's like fans should, in a way, prepare themselves to, on round 3, pick 99 or whatever they have this year, that San Francisco drafts a receiver. And we'll dive into more of that once mock draft season comes along. But I don't think we're underselling it. I just don't think San Francisco views it as a major need, although still a need of this offense. Papa J also says that Greenlaw, the fear is that he turns into Eric Armstead. Great player, but never there. Yep, very much could happen. Hopefully it doesn't, albeit very different situations where the Niners had Armstead signed, then he got hurt. In this case, a Greenlaw should be relatively cheaper than Armstead was. And Tommy Huxley to end says, Sterling, how dare you? Juwan Jennings has been like a brother to you. Are you going to let him roam the streets without food, water, a toilet? No, Juwan can sleep in my bed for all I care. I got 2 rooms in this house. He can sleep in the master bedroom for all I care. Do whatever he wants. That said, not elite. Really good. Love Juwan. 3rd and Juwan, he's more than that. He proved this past year. Had he not gotten ejected, he'd be here. He'd be a 1,000-yard receiver, but not elite, albeit really, really good. Bona fide number 2 in my opinion, but San Francisco needs that guy. Although I could see them kind of going by death by 1,000 cuts rather than having the number 1 elite guy. You got Kittle, you got CMC back. That's kind of all you really need to be successful, but you got some health as well. But that's all I got for you today. What did you make of John Lynch's press conference? Did you like the Brock Purdy confirmation in regards to contract talks beginning? What about Deebo Samuel maybe coming back? Do you like that? Do you hate that? Do you even believe John Lynch anymore? Do you like the idea of Jake Moody being back in 2025 and the team still believing in him? I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that, but tell me down below what you think of John Lynch's press conference in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave that review. Follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X and the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And if you want to see any sports team play, MLB, NFL, NBA, you want to go to a concert this year, go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And if you want to perform like the GOAT, grab yourself a can of GOAT fuel down below and save yourself 10% off your first purchase by using that link in the description. I want to thank Papa J, Bobo, Tommy Huxley, the great one, 765, Rick Diaz, Dre Area Sports, and so many more of you in the YouTube comments keys. Don't want to forget you, JD Durham as well. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on the audio podcasting platforms. Give us that 5-star review. It's the cheapest, freest, and easiest way to help the podcast grow. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, as always, stay faithful.